I would like to introduce the Vice President of AMPI National, Pedro Fernandez, and Mario Padilla, who will be the translator, or the interpreter, I should say, and Julieta Enriquez, who will be our guest speaker today. So with that, I am hoping that this comes through perfectly with all the translation done the way we think it's going to work. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pedro Fernandez. Thank you so much for being here.
Kickoff. Adelante. Ya estoy al aire. Joseph, ya estoy al aire.
Oh.
Well, good morning.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. We have interpretation. If you require it, please click on the world icon and choose the language of your preference. Good morning, my dear family from AMPI Puerto Peñasco. How are you? A pleasure to salute you. I am very, very happy, very pleased to be with you this morning here in Veracruz, where I live, your home. It's 1 p.m. In a short while, we'll be having lunch. So I am greeting you from my home. And before we start this talk, I'd like, at the end of this show, please recommend a good lawyer that could carry a legal thing in Puerto Peñasco, because in past dates that I had the pleasure to be with you, I suffered a theft, a very important theft. It turns out that my family from AMPI Puerto Peñasco stole my heart, and that's why I'm here with you today. I went and tried to find you, and I said we would be in constant communication, and today I have a great surprise for you. I'd like to thank especially my dear President, my dear Chairman, Joseph Toland, for all his availability, for all his willingness, for this synergy, for this operation with AMPI National and such important section, AMPI Puerto Peñasco. And I'd like to thank also especially my dear friend, George Bravo, who's given all his enthusiasm, who's supported me on ideas, and that's very ready for this to happen, and that we all have this connection. I'd also like to tell you that I've decided that with God's blessing, next January 28th of 2021, I'll have the honor of representing AMPI nationally, and I'll take office officially. So each and every one of you are my honored guests, and I'd like to have you there because it will be an enormous surprise to be able to share this important surprise with this family. That so I'm here, Jorge Bravo. I'm sorry, yes, he's my brother, but well, known as George Bravo, but yes, his name is Jorge. So, dear friends, I have a surprise, an excellent surprise for you. My dear friend for many years is a person that I admire as a human being, but also in the professional arena. She is incredible. She is she's an entrepreneurial coach for development of leadership and high performance. She's written a book, Words to Heal, collaborating with the media, mastering and communication, and she has training in neurosciences by Joe Dispenza, and she's taken a lot of courses with the famous trainer Tony Robbins, and fast learning, photo reading, design thinking, high direction, meditation, and neuro leadership. So I'm honored to share with you a talk, a very important talk that will help us understand that there's a schism in history with this pandemic, worldwide pandemic, that has made us operate differently. To understand that if we stay where we were and we keep utilizing these formats, we'll be able to get to the dangerous step of being out of service. So Darwin said it, the species that survive, and I'll say it in the argot of real estate, will be the real estate professionals that know how to adapt to change. So I give you this great person, and I hope you like it, and I'm sure it will. So Julieta, welcome. Thank you, Pedro. Very happy to be here and share with Puerto Peñasco this information that is so fresh, to have more tools, but also to expand the perspective or how we can make better decisions when facing this situation that is a challenge worldwide. And beyond adapting as a human species, today we have the opportunity to reinvent ourselves, to be one step ahead. So it will be a pleasure to share with you everything that can make us make a better decision right now, have a team, favor the real estate sector, and strengthen the great family that is AMPI. Joseph, Pedro, thank you for the invitation. So I'll share my screen. Can we leave questions to the chat? And Mario, thank you for the support. We'll read the chat. Again, this is our beautiful planet, our blue planet, and we can see Puerto Peñasco very well. And it's this beautiful place, in this beautiful land where 8,000 million souls move up and down, stressed, moving, I don't know where, because it seems that we still haven't learned a lot of lessons that are that come from the past, even though we're the most intelligent species, the Homo sapiens. Even if we started evolving with the tools, the Homo habilis, then we stood in two extremities as Homo erectus. We started conquering lands, and they were called Homo sapiens. But I don't know how sapiens, how intelligent, because it seems we're doing something wrong. This problem of global warming, migration, the gap between rich and poor, racism. These are things that are very old and we haven't been able to solve them. We are doing something wrong, and this is our opportunity to reinvent ourselves, to interpret history in a different way. Today, we are the Homo smartphone. We are all the time connected. Yes, it's important to maintain a connection, but we must be very attentive to our posture, because past studies, chiropractors have given a lot of recommendations, because young people, 15, 20 years old, have increased the use of surgeries and the use of the cervicals because of the posture, and it's also proven that people towards old age lose height because of posture. They lose height. So we must be very, very attentive to our posture. So the challenge now is moving from the Homo sapiens to the Nomad. This is the newest term in topics of leadership, so that we are these nomads of knowledge, these much more proactive people, much more sufficient people, but something very essential to understand that we're the result of the decisions that we take. What we're transforming into. Every time I say yes, where am I going? Every time I say no, what am I missing? So the thing here is to understand that the idea is to take knowledge to make better decisions. The more we take this role of being true knowledge seekers and understanding that knowledge is to be shared, to be expanded, to be transformed, we can move one step closer to solving all these issues that are centuries old, without being able to say that today the humanity gets to a fullness. So this nomad of knowledge has challenges. When we talk about leadership, high performance, teamwork, we must really check this issue if we are still people with subordinates. That is a very archaic system, very old system that won't be okay for the new reality, because today we are called upon, so that this new globalization, we have the opportunity to reinvent ourselves, to update ourselves, but also go into innovation processes. What reached us to get to the person that we are today won't be enough for the new challenges of leadership. Today, the leader not only must be in the strategy field, in the innovation field, in change management. The leader is essential because people are emotions. And today, people have emotions up and down because moods and our moods depend on our results. In the topic of leadership, we must move from our comfort area. Yes, I work a lot, but if I am not doing anything new, if I'm not learning anything different, I am in that area that is so comfortable that I don't even notice. And too much comfort in the long term turns to mediocrity. And today, the pandemic, the COVID, kicked us from our comfort area and beyond adapting ourselves as a human. As humans, we can reinvent to truly be agents of change, agents of transformation. And if life allows, in 10 years or maybe more, tell the next generation who we used to be when modern history changed. Victims of circumstance or true agents of change. So this is the invitation today to take the tools, expand the perspective, to become these agents of change that humanity needs so much. We need to pull the economy from intensive therapy, and reestablish a new order, a new reality. This is the invitation for you all. And sometimes we forget, being so busy, that life is like a game. And this is a quote from Mother Teresa, one of the most emblematic people in the history of humanity, a woman that all presidents and world leaders took her call. And curiously, she gives us a lesson for these times. Mother Teresa, that worked with lepers, with the sick, with the dying, with the marginated. She never got sick, not even a flu, because it's proven, scientifically proven, that when you have this biochemistry that your actions generate, your generous actions generate, your level of focus, your immune system is so high, and there is no way you can get sick. That's why it's so important that that we need to have this immune system so high. We need to be attentive to our moods, our emotions, and if we want to improve it, a good way to do it, doubtlessly, is to help others. Talking about saying that business is a game, life is a game, we must learn how to win, how to lose. In 2011, this video game came out. You know that the industry of video games is millions of dollars. And what's important for this game is the story of this video game, that at that time in 2011, no one took it because it had no explosions or zombies, or zombie stories. Because most people were already a zombie. It wasn't very successful, but this pandemic game is very impressive, because to win you must save humanity, and to save humanity you must be a team. And heroes don't have capes or explosions or superpowers. What they have is the capacity to help others and be a team. And that's very close to the reality of today, the topic of the pandemic, how a virus destroys the world. And this is the video game from 2011 that is a great lesson I bring it today, because maybe the game that we were playing is this one. How we each were on our own things, everyone with our own goals, and we forgot how to be a team. Yes, we get there faster, but together we get farther. So what game are we playing? Because I think we were forgetting that we're part of something much bigger than us, and the importance of common good, because in the end, we're all connected. I think the best game we can start playing right now has to do with strategy. How much do we know to learn chess? It's my favorite game because before we make a move, you checked three possible moves or three possible. Right now, it's essential in the leadership issue, the strategy. Without strategy, there are no results. So at the time when we can talk about long term, We only talk about probable scenarios, and we have this flexibility, this adaptability, that it can all change from one time to another. Between the elections in the US, the economic, the political arena, change management, everything we have to do to reinvent ourselves, the topics that we had in Latin America, I think more than ever, we should be much more focused, much more attentive to each decision that we make, to every decision is bringing me closer to where I want to go, or I'm falling behind, because human beings are the result of each decision that our life that we've taken. Some very good, some are very, very brave, others a little coward. But it's clear for me that it was the best I could do at the time. So today, what is at play is our life. Today, what's at play, it's many important things, and we must be much more focused, not on what I want, not a list of desires, an enormous list of wishes, what I need right now, what does my business need, what do I need as a person, what does my family need, what does the society needs. When we focus on covering this necessity, we won't be generating so many needs, and the level of focus determines the level of results. So how are we playing life? Are we truly attentive? Are we truly aware of the person that I am and the person that I want to be, the result I have and the result I want to have? So it's a whole process every day, from the crib to the grave. It never ends. So it's essential to be questioning ourselves, because at some time we thought that the earth was flat, and it wasn't, that it's the center of the universe, and it wasn't. Today that we're thinking, and it's not that way. I think science has proven the opposite, many things in past years, but we should ask ourselves right now that I'm standing first row on the greatest change in the history of humanity. What decision must I take right now? Where am I aiming my efforts, my energy, to be able to take myself to high performance and accompany everyone else? Because right now it's all a challenge. So from the 90s, we got this term of VUCA world. We know it a lot today because we talk about the VUCA world, because it was volatility, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We didn't know the actual level of uncertainty or volatility, complexity, and ambiguity that we would face. No one saw it coming, but here it is. So what will we do with this? Because it's a true challenge, not only in the social, political arena. I think we're more vulnerable we are, and it's not on the table yet, it's on mental health. Mental health, where it's mental health where we are seeing problems. So with this, I remember a movie that maybe some of you saw. It's a very famous movie from 73, Silent Green. Well, in Spanish, it was called When Destiny Reaches Us, and it's already caught upon us. It was an apocalyptic future in 2022. We're about to be in 2022. We're in the third quarter of the year, and in a blink of an eye, we'll say Happy New Year. So I remember this movie because that phrase is essential, when destiny reaches us, because in 73, it was offering a panorama, a very little encouraging panorama of the challenges that we will face as humanity, the scarcity of food, because of our lack of conscience and or true strategy or teamwork, and what's happening today. And even though we have all the signs, we haven't made changes yet. And I remember that when this was starting in February, the first surges in the American continent, a friend in Canada called me, truly impressed, Julieta. They closed the movies and the malls, and in the door it says, in the movie theater will open again when life stops being like a movie. And I would add a horror movie, because when this happened, and when it knocked on your door, when you saw it up close, when it started happening in your family, in the people close to you, it was the iconic painting of Munch, Surprise. So somehow we are moving against the clock because time is essential. There were companies that reacted very fast. Some people denied that, and time determines our results. Time has a very important characteristic. You either invest it or you lose it. Time is what you make it. Because this world, we come to this world naked and we leave naked, but the only thing that we own is our attention. What I give my attention to, that's why I love in English, pay attention. Pay me with your attention, because that's the only thing I do have, and sometimes I disperse it, and what's urgent eats up what's important once time's over, and we are racing against that. So it's a version to reinvent, to refocus on those things that we actually need, and recognize that we don't need, that we didn't need so much. So this challenge that we're facing when we are protagonists of the new times, the new history of humanity, nothing will be the same. What place we'll have, what will we become? What will be the challenges in society, in companies, in leadership? So what we are seeing is that beyond focus being the victims or the level of contagion, the deaths, the economy that is very contracted and dropping, and it's in intensive therapy. What we still haven't mentioned that is already happening is mental health, people's mental health, because our biology needs that for my generation of oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins to keep me stable, focused, with vitality, and capable of making good decisions. It's been completely altered by this social isolation because I am not seeing, I'm not touching, I'm not laughing. I leave and I don't see people's smiles. That generates empathy, that generates oxytocin, not only physically, being able to touch and hug. When you share existence with other people, the anthropomorphic field that shares that you can measure with devices at 3 meters away, the science of math of the heart of the US. And when you are with other people, you are vibrating, you are feeling, you feel alive. So of course, being in isolation was only themselves and their soul. Others were a couple, others as a family, but those that were a couple, they sometimes notice that they have nothing in common. So we were very dispersed in attention. And this moment is an invitation to reinvent ourselves, to learn to handle stress that we've criticized so much, but that is so necessary because science has proven that if there's no tension, there's no evolution. In the same way, when a carbon is subjected to high pressure until it generates a diamond, human beings require some level of tension, up to a certain point, healthy tension, to evolve, to take the step forward. Stress is not bad. What's bad is not knowing how to handle it, and we don't know how to handle it. In the last 5 years, it's increased a lot. Consumption of antidepressants and suicides, almost 200%, 200-fold. So what are we doing right now? With the stress, is it necessary? It's necessary for high performance, but at a healthy level, because what stress does is to give me tension for action, for resolution, for good performance. But I need to modify how long I stay in stress, because otherwise I break up. When we are stressed, we generate cortisol, and cortisol is the hormone of stress that not only will be that will make my blood to go to my hands to fight, to my feet to run, but that it defocuses me from from action, and it starts preventing cell regeneration, and it lowers the immune system. So that's why more than ever, today more than ever, we must handle our moods, and beyond stress, go back to our center. And the leader today requires that not only to your person, but that's an emotional intelligence The leader must accompany others, because what I've seen in past months in companies is that people go to their jobs, but they come with this story of having someone sick. The sister lost a job, a relative died, I'm afraid, or so on. So the leader, more than ever, has a role of a coach, because the leader, what they want is to get the best of others, and that's why we need to get the best of ourselves. So the specialty that I have in our neurosciences has made me passionate on the workings of our brain. So we use very little of its capacity. And in this image, we see on the left a brain that is entirely healthy, and in a stimulus, it generates all the connections, all the synapses of the dendrites with the neurons. And on the right, the brain already has a cognitive deterioration. That function doesn't happen. But I'll make it more clear, more graphic. This is a young brain. See how beautiful it is. And this other is a brain that has aging. So what happens with the brain that throughout decades, we lose neurons. If we go beyond 30 years old every day, 10,000 neurons die a day if we don't use them. So let's add that sometimes we abuse our body, abuse substances, stress, anxiety, and with all of that, we start degenerating cognitively terribly. So the brain, after in the old age, it starts losing 3 grams of encephalic mass every year. And also on the inside, it looks uh, Roquefort cheese. So Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, everything that can distort the neuron connection starts being evident in human beings. But there's no age here. I know young people, 40 years old, that look like 60 years old, and 80-year-old that run triathlons and that are focused. And the book of the blue zones, which is a beautiful research on how in some places of the world people live 115 years without problems, without disease, and at 90 they are completely healthy without cancer or Alzheimer or Parkinson's. They are completely healthy and they are self-sustaining. So what determines our mental health and our performance and our emotional management is understanding one thing: life is not what's happening, but what we do with what's happening. With this decision, what do you become? And today, what's happening today, like every crisis, has two elements: danger and opportunity. But danger will generate this fear that will help us make my senses more acute, to be more attentive, and fear stands in front of you to say, hey, are you ready? Take it on or get more ready. That's the function of fear. And by making my senses more acute for survival, I'll seek the opportunities. That's the game of every crisis. That's a great opportunity that we have today. But if I go into these stories, repetitive stories, the horror stories of what's happening, of the financial situation, the political crisis, so I'm becoming a victim. Human beings have an average of 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day. 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And we take an average as adults of 2,500 decisions a day. We have an electric storms in our head, so we must be well hydrated. The thing here is that when the topic of stay at home happened, you and your multiple personalities must stay at home, because we had a lot of issues inside. I was a panelist in a radio show, and one of the panelists was a psychiatrist, and I was amazed that he mentioned that he had years without being able to channel someone to go into a hospital because of psychiatry. During the pandemic, I've channeled more than 10 people, because mental health, how we are facing this, maybe bipolarity, obsessive compulsive syndrome, my level of anxiety, my panic attacks, or my depression because I've gone down. So all of this is happening, and we have more than ever, we must notice to take charge, because most people go through life without noticing. So if they don't notice, they blame everyone else. But if I notice, there are two options. I either notice and I don't do anything, and I start fooling myself, and I start filling my head. That's where addictions happen. Even workaholism, or people that are addicted to the cell phone, they must check their social networks all the time. People that are addicted to pornography, to online purchases, to some substance, etc. So I notice that, and I evade myself, or I notice and I take charge. And if I take charge, I'll be able to be better standing, so that anything that happens, whatever happens, it catches me standing and ready to take the opportunities that are happening right now. When we thought that we had our map very well, but the land changed. When I thought I had a lot of answers, but then the time came to ask new questions. That's what this is about, new questions. So what question would help me move away mentally, emotionally, physically? What question I haven't asked that I need? The art of asking questions makes a difference in your quality of life. But I don't want to question myself. In school, we had to raise our hand to ask questions, but question ourselves. Questioning ourselves is some of the most productive activities there are. Before moving to the next stage of my talk, I'd like to make a refresh in your brains, a little neurosciences exercise. So for such purpose, let me see if I can read the chat. So here, I think it's open for everyone. Could you please write something on the chat to see if you're here? Let's have a game, only 90 seconds. Write something. Okay, I'm reading from Las Conchas. Okay, who else is here? I'm trying to see if I'm on the right channel. Okay, let's have this dynamic, see if it works well. What will I do? What I'll do is that the left hemisphere of our brain, where our side that has to do with language, with numbers, logic, analytic, is very attentive to what I'm saying. But for this to happen in the long-term memory has to do with, for me to make space in the right side, the ludic and creative space. So I'll have this short dynamic. I'll play a song, and the first person to guess who's singing that and what's the name of the song wins. So yes, I'm here in the chat. Let's see if it works. Let's see who's the first one to tell me the name of this song.
Mario, I don't know that we can hear that very well.
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah, it's part of the interpretation. That's right. If you're on the Spanish channel, you can hear it, but if you're in the English channel, maybe you won't be able to hear it. Yes.
Tiene otro audio, es correcto. Okay.
Has a different audio, yeah. Well, then we can't play this game. I'm so sorry. Only those that are on the Spanish channel. But the idea was to guess a song. But every time you need high performance, that you need to focus, that you need learning, that you're going to study something, to have a course, prepare your brains, hydrating it properly, that you ate protein, animal or vegetable protein, and listening to your favorite music 1 hour before generates a great neuron connections for high performance. Same when you're going to present yourself before a client. It's great so that you can have great negotiation ideas, capacity to persuade, to have an influence, to have good sleep, have slept your hours, you have consumed protein, that you hydrated yourself, and that you had fun before. I don't know how heavy your day is, but if at least 20 minutes before you sang or you danced or you heard your music, the brain makes other connections, your neurochemistry changed, your level of energy changed, and you have much more focus or empathy. But that's biochemistry, and mammals have mirror neurons to emphasize, and that way we can negotiate better and have a better influence on others. So that's one neuroscience tip. So human beings are made of atoms and words. What are the words that we use the most every day? Because sometimes we're not aware of what words we're using the most. Bruce Lipton, a great scientist, has a very interesting conference on how on the microscope you can see the cells of a person that is angry all the time, resented all the time, and how those cells contract. And in another analysis, the cells of a person that lives his or her life in gratitude, good emotional intelligence, you see how the nutrients, how the cell takes those nutrients and expands. That makes a big difference. So what are we telling ourselves every day? Because that's what we're becoming. Robert Sheldrake has shown through science that actually our moods are contagious. There is a theory from the 70s. It's the 100th monkey. What happens when a collective awareness from one member of that species transfers to the others. And if one feels fear, we are generating more disease. When the Twin Towers happened, when 9/11 happened, that was measured because the devices were there, and it's all proven by hard math. And how truly the emotions of human beings in the planet were of fear and pain, and it's clear why. But it was such, the emotional movement was such that we altered the electromagnetic field of Earth. So that's why moods are so contagious, and our moods, our results come from our moods. So in leadership, the leader must manage, first of all, his emotions to have an influence on others. And that's truly leadership. And I won't go beyond that. I'm moving to the closing and the questions. But if you want to know a little more, in the TED Talk website, there's a TED Talk. It is subtitled, and we have all that, the science thing and the words. And so leaders today are agents of change. The leader is this coach leader that doesn't say what to do, but ask how we do it. And the success of a team has to do with the level of involvement. If people are involved, people are focused. A team is a shared responsibility today. We need true teams that are much more proactive, much more creative to be able to innovate, because creativity will play an essential role. That model of being so busy, workaholic with the burnout syndrome, that Mexico was #1 and the United States not falling behind, and we had a lot of facial paralysis, heart attacks, young attacks. That has to do with that mode where there's no true teamwork, where there's no involvement, shared responsibility to open the space to innovation. So that's old. That doesn't work. That's not enough for a new reality, a much more competitive reality. So the new neuro leadership is taking up more strength, how to understand how my biology works, to put this in my favor and not against me, not and make every emotion, that is the energy that moves me, make us facilitate not only the topic of leadership, of being able to persuade, to have an influence, but the topic of maintaining this physical and mental through my emotional intelligence, through my emotional management. So with the topic of emotional intelligence, everything begins through self-knowledge. If I make this pause that the world made to turn to myself and respond after 6 months confined, what am I becoming? Who am I becoming? Now I am a person more what and less what, because when this ends, what would be serious is for someone to keep being the same person. When this ends, what would be serious is that we did not improve, not even a little, some habit, some skill, or even our physical or mental health. That's why it's so important. That's why emotional intelligence is so important, and developing empathy, because that's what we need the most right now. When you hear those terrible these speeches of radicalization, of polarization, of criticizing, of fighting, and we don't forget that we have much more reasons to hug each other, to support each other, than to fight against each other. Today, we need teams, communities, and of course, in the business sector, the real estate arena, and the AMPI families to strengthen the bonds, to share knowledge, share experiences, because that will be the way to expand. So I celebrate that you took the decision of being able to have this webinar today and to have here your attention, these minutes, so that we can take charge of what we do, high performance leadership, and be true agents of change. That's what the humanity needs to transform. In Neutral leadership has a lot to do with this topic of knowing what time it's better to book an appointment. When should I sleep better? Our brain works perfectly from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 2 p.m. What's that? That you slept. Maybe you need to have slept properly, that you must be well hydrated. You must have eaten your morning protein, and that you have a good mood. That's your super memory, your super focus, your super capacity to negotiate, and your super assertivities to the max from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 2 p.m. After 7 o'clock or 6:30, the body starts to go into lower light, and so blood pressure raises, temperature raises, and that's the last effort that the body gives. But if at that time, before going to sleep at 9 or 10, which would be very healthy, we go forward with a series of netlists with the social networks, with the screens, we end up frying neurons and not having high performance. So today we need to have more information to make better decisions, and so focus our capacity, remembering that every human being has in their nature this greatness of being able to get their talent out. And when you put your talent into action, wealth comes by itself. And when you learn to be a team and be the best version of yourself, and this heat, this punch that reality gave us, that puts us out of our comfort zone without we need evolution, we need to evolve. So we need to step out of this in a better place, and we must honor those that we stay, and we must make this an agent of change that we need it too much. So without taking more of your time, I'll move to the questions, inviting you to become friends with your fear, because fear is this function of activating my senses to be safe, but also fear gives us this sensation of activity towards creativity, and creativity feeds from curiosity, and that's the way to evolve, the way humanity evolves. I'll recommend Joe Gebbia's TED Talk, the owner of Airbnb, how he tells how this whole industry that generated billions of dollars came up from fear, made creativity. Today, what we are feeling, we must put it on the table to transform and move to the most creative form of our personality. So I hope we have new novels, new movies, new theater plays, new songs, because through art is how we can reinvent ourselves, and that's how we can manage our emotions. It's the time to step off the teacher's chair, because the world changed entirely. Because when I had the answers, came the time to make new questions. So if I have this student mentality, I'll open myself to de-learn, to learn a new world, a much more human world, a much equal world, more proactive world, and much more healthy and sustainable world. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this with you today. And I'll ask the support to Mario. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julieta. Are you willing to take some questions?
Sí, por supuesto, adelante, gracias.
Okay. Perfecto. Disculpe, mi español no es muy bien, pero there is, you mentioned, I think you said something about blue zones, zonas azules. Was there a specific book that that you recommend for this?
Es correcto, el libro se llama así, Zonas
That is
Azules.
right. That's the name of the book, Blue Zones. It's a beautiful research made on 5 areas of the country where research has shown that people live an average of 115 years. But what's more wonderful is that at 90 years old, you see them and they are completely healthy, active, and they're autonomous. And they're still working, and they ride a bike. And they're immersed in nature. I don't know Puerto Peñasco, but maybe it will have some features of sustainable life, such as the blue zones.
Okay, perfect. What is the name of your book? I know that you
¿Cuál es el
wrote
nombre
a book.
de tu libro? Sé que... Yes, it's called Words to Heal. Just write my name in Google. You get my book, the conferences, and the TED Talk.
Okay. I'm going to ask our attendee participants what questions they have for you. And feel free to ask the question in the Q&A section or in the chat. I have a question from a participant. And I'm sorry, I'm reading the question. Is there a way to combat fear? Is there a way to feel less afraid when you're doing new tasks?
Ok. El miedo es una emoción.
Very well. Fear is an emotion. It's biological. In 7 seconds, it's installed. It changes blood pressure, breathing, brain's neurochemistry. It's fear makes us safe. It moves us to do things. Unless I tell myself horror stories and I make fear, panic, paranoia. That's when the emotion is not functional. No emotion is good, no emotion is bad, but it's as functional or dysfunctional depending on how long I remain on that function and how I am with that. It's emotion that moves me. Energy doesn't destroy itself, it transforms. So if I make fear an action with prevention, it generates a result. But if I keep fear and make it bigger, I am making myself sick and I am self-sabotaging.
And you mentioned mental health. Do you find that in this situation with COVID, that we are having more people who are irrationally scared or too scared, and what might real estate agents what can they do to overcome and continue to promote their business to make our way past this this situation that we're in now?
La labor que hacen ustedes
The job that you do
mucho peso emocional.
has a lot of emotional weight because people don't just wake up one day, oh, I feel like buying or selling a house. No, when a person buys or sells a house, their life is moving, or they're either in a divorce, or they want a job, or they want a project, or they are moving to an independent. Something big is happening when they make this decision. That's why a training of emotional intelligence is so important for this profession. First, so that as a real estate agent, I learn how to center myself before going before a person, because if I'm afraid, if I have anxiety, I'll transmit that, even if it doesn't look like I'm showing my poker face. I'll show how I feel, and that may have an impact on the trust that my client has. If there's no trust, there's no client. I must know how to present myself. That's why it's centering yourself is so important, number one. Number two, if people come to me now with this sensation of fear, my role is not selling. Neuroscience has shown that from teenager years, we don't like to be told what to do, even if it's good for us. I don't like to be sold. I hate salesmen. I love solutions. If you're the solution to what's happening to me, I'll buy, and I'll love you, and I'll recommend you. So that's why we must be very well centered, very well standing to provide consulting, and I can work on that through emotional intelligence. Maybe the world is falling down, but I center myself, I focus, and I introduce myself to be able to give consultancy with all the trust, with all the safety, and so that everyone around me find me as a solution, and that creates a long-term relationship and recommendation to have better performance in the industry.
One question. Julie, hoy el sector inmobiliario.
Julie, today the real estate industry comes from many years of operating in a format where people above 40 dominated the market. We've noticed that the new generations, the ones that call millennials or centennials, and those that come below that, the true sources of information in the real estate world tells us that they are 40% of the active buyers in the last year. This means that if at my age and the people that are around me don't adapt to the synergies and the way these generations operate, the one that is out of date is myself. But there's something that they don't have, that is experience. And suddenly they say that experience is called Google. However, the art of knowing how to transmit that experience requires a special talent. So I'd like to ask, as an expert in the environment that you've had, the work that you've had in these two generations, what's the secret to exchange win-win between the experience in my generation and the way to operate effectively and the way we work today, that is that these generations are handling? I believe that it's centered on the capacity to learn how to talk, where the main ingredient is to know how to listen. And that's what's most difficult, because my visceral animal side sees my truth, my point of view as a land, as a territory. That's the way I think about it. That's the best it is. So if I don't open myself to other points of view, the millennial, when taking the vivid experience that won't be in Google, and the X or baby boomer takes the speed, the immediacy that the new generation requires, and adapting to use their means of communication. If you don't do that, this transfer of knowledge won't happen. This involvement won't happen. It's understanding that it's diversity what makes any operation richer. But we must learn how to talk, having as main essence the mastery on how to listen to different points of view, not what I'm being told, what he's not saying, or what he or she is not saying. And if he's saying that, why is he saying that? He or she is saying that. And from what concern is he saying that? When I am able to listen, my five senses are aware, and I have a reality on my table. And listening is when we're going to agree that you and I see the same thing on the table. Maybe we don't agree, maybe we need a second opinion, maybe I need to think, but I see your point of view and my point of view to be able to share together something much better. And that requires empathy, of course, assertiveness, emotional intelligence, that regrettably are not a subject in any university yet. Thank you, Yuli. And I don't know if there's any other question. I'd like to thank Joseph the invitation today, and Jorge, bravo. Thank you very much to both of you.
I do have two other very quick questions from the audience, if that's okay.
Adelante, adelante, claro.
Gracias. Julieta, do you travel to blue zones in order to become less stressed, or do you practice what you learned in blue zones wherever you are?
Practico meditación todos los días.
I practice meditation every day. I do exercise almost every day. A healthy feeding habits with fruits, vegetables, and antioxidants. That's what I copy from the blue zones. And since November, it was my trip to Italy was paid one of the blue zones, and Spain, because COVID didn't allow me until next year to try that. But I have friends in some of the blue zones, and I've seen very interesting documentaries.
Okay, the last, I think, yeah, the last one right now, last question. Can you explain how stress affects our ability to speak with clients or with other agents effectively when we're trying to do business with clients or with other agents?
Claro, cuando...
Yes, of course. When we have the feeling of being stressed, it's the tension that the body generates to give a response when facing an emergency that may have a certain dosage of danger. It's normal, it's necessary. A certain tension is necessary for evolution and for high performance. But if stress is for many hours, or if it's very high because I don't feel ready, then it generates a large amount of cortisol, the stress hormone. And what happens is that blood goes mainly to the hands to try to fight, the feet to run. And so I lose my level of focus. If I add to this level of stress that I don't handle my emotions properly, my emotion will predominate, my limbic system blocks itself, blocks the neurocortex, the reasoning area blocks itself, literally. So I won't have good memory nor capacity to negotiate, or I won't be assertive, I won't empathize. This is total biology. So what will happen before every meeting, it's very important to center yourself. 10 minutes where before I introduce myself, I sit down, I breathe, slow, calm, and I maintain a posture of power to lower cortisol and raise the response. So this could be like Superman or Wonder Woman, 3 minutes of this posture, legs open, arms open. This gives me the feeling of power. Chin up, back straight. I'll feel very strong, very powerful. I feel that I am ready for anything. If I give myself a playlist of my favorite music, very empowering, I'd ask Lenny Kravitz, are you gonna come away so I can dominate the world? So I do that before presenting myself before anyone or before a meeting. If I feel scared, insecure, or fearful, I'll face a shark. I do this, inhale, exhale, 10 minutes, good music, good breathing, and I'm ready. That's what we do to handle stress. But everything has to do with my conversation with myself. But because if I'm afraid of what will they say, or I'm very good in my business, but maybe, oh, my sister is sick, or I have this with this economic situation. If I'm in this conversation, my body responds to biology. We can't fool biology, and the body doesn't lie, and we will see that in our face. So exercise of centering helps us control stress, because otherwise the blood will be in the wrong place, and maybe it may be so much emotion, can be so much anger, fear, sadness, because I feel frustrated, that maybe the neurocortex will get blocked and I won't be able to give good performance. That's why the leader must manage emotions, starting with himself, because when you see a person centered, maybe after the storm, it's peace that will happen.
Do you use any applications on your smartphone to help you get to that state, or is it just?
¿Haces algo en tu teléfono para llegar a ese estado?
Mario, te perdí porque medio entendí el tema de...
Oh.
Joseph, can you repeat me the question, please, again? Because I can hear well.
Sí, ¿usted usa algo, aplicación en tu teléfono para hacer eso, o es solo práctica?
Ok, Mario, hablo en español, pero yo escucho tu canal. Sí. Ah, ok. Afortunadamente ya hay aplicaciones.
Fortunately, there are apps. Like everything in the world will have apps. Even sale of real estate has a lot of apps. But I have 10 years doing that, so I don't go to apps. However, there are very good apps to start connecting yourself to all these skills.
Okay. All right. I think that those
creo que
questions
esas son.
Pedro, I don't know if you have anything else to say.
Agradecerles muchísimo este esfuerzo, esta atención.
Thank you for this effort, for this attention, for this time that was so valuable. For that to make sense for you, share it, expand that, share the recorded class, because that way more people will be able to make better decisions and will be able to strengthen the real estate sector and the family of AMPI. So Joseph, thank you very much. Jorge, thank you very much. Pedro, thank you very much. And Mario, thank you very much for helping me out with interpretation. Thank you, Julieta. This presentation was Great. Thank you for your for the knowledge you've given us, this new way of life that we're all applying, that it's our job to apply it, because otherwise we won't be efficient in our operations. Again, I'd like to thank the chairman, Joseph Tolan, for giving us this opportunity of having this meeting, Jorge Bravo, and everyone in my family. AMPI Peñasco, I promised that I would be in constant communication, and I'm counting the days to visit you next year. I invite you with all this anticipation to talk about a forum that AMPI Peñasco has a forum. This would be very interesting. Your people that can give us a lot nationally, knowledge and experiences. Real estate tourism is very important to reposition housing in our country. You're dear to me. I send you a hug. Robert Meyer, I'm reading you. I want to give you a big hug when I get to Puerto Peñasco. We'll be in touch. It's not the last time that we're in touch from today until we meet again. It's a pleasure. Blessings. Have a great weekend. And I really hope that you enjoyed this talk from Julieta as much as I did. Thank you very much.
Okay, and thank both of you so much for your attention to Puerto Peñasco. We very much appreciate having the support of such a wonderful organization such as AMPI, and we really appreciate you taking the time to spend a little bit of time with us today. We appreciate it more than you will know. So thank you again.
Thanks, President.
Muchas gracias. Gracias a todos. Que tengan un gran día. Gracias.
Hagamos las cosas bien de raíz. Hasta luego.
Gracias.
Chao.
Bye.